Good evening, everyone. It's 6:30. I have a quorum of voting commissioners, so I will open up tonight's Mashpee Conservation Commission meeting for Thursday, October 10th, 2024. Tonight, we're meeting in the Wacoit Meeting Room, Mashpee Town Hall, 16 Great Neck Road North. Our meeting is broadcast live on local cable channels 8 and 1072. We are also streamed live on the Town of Mashpee website. Before we do begin, if you would like to join me in a pledge of allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Thank you. I'd like to pose for a moment of silence. Perhaps you'd like to keep in mind all of our family, friends, and the residents of the state of Florida that are recovering from the recent hurricane of last night and early this morning. Thank you. I will take public comment first, and this is for any issues that are not related to agenda items that we have posted for tonight's meeting. So if there's somebody from the public that would like to speak, this would be the time. Yes, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name's Tim Gilday. I'm with the Papaneset Beach Association. Hope you're all doing well. As I recall, I have 3 minutes.
Yes,
Is that
you do.
right?
Yep.
And you do not have to respond to what I say, correct?
Exactly.
Thank you. So I'll be brief. We provided the Beals and Thomas Consulting Report on Rule 25. We hope that provides value to the commission in your process of going through in the rulemaking. If you have any questions or you want to speak to that group, we can arrange that. They can come in and meet at your convenience. I just wanted to pass that along.
Okay.
Secondly, if you could provide us just a summary of where you're at in the process, that would be very helpful for us. That's all I have.
Okay. I actually will respond to that. We will be covering Regulation 25 under our discussion, which is pre and post discussion items. It'll be a very brief discussion, but I will be touching on where the Bylaw Review Subcommittee is presently at with the review.
Terrific.
I can't tell you what time that'll be. There's a lot of hearings and other business, but
I understand it, and I can always go back on tape.
there you go.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Before we do begin the hearings, I am going to drop down to the pre- and post-hearing agenda and ask for Sienna Pitt.
It's Sean. Sean.
Sean.
It's a tough one.
I have a hard time with a lot of names. I'm sorry.
It's the proper Gaelic, but
Well, we have your letter of interest and your resume, so we have a procedure, and that's to have you come in, introduce yourself to the commission. The commissioners will ask any questions they would like of you.
okay.
And then we fill out a recommendation, which is all kind of collected here and forwarded over to the select board. They are actually the appointing authority, not us.
Okay.
But we do make the recommendation
Go
one
ahead,
way or
mention
another.
that.
Okay?
I talked to real great.
So you've got the floor.
So I'm Shauna Pitt. I live at 30 Uncle Edwards Lane. I grew up in Norfolk, Massachusetts, so I'm a native North Massachusettsite, or whatever we call ourselves. I have spent 30 years pursuing my career in New York, in the greater Hudson Valley area. And upon retirement, my husband Stephen and I came back to the Cape and turned our cottage into our permanent home in retirement. So I'm very interested in this position on the Conservation Commission because I think water is one of those critical aspects of what is going to define us going forward. Water is important for everything, living thing on the planet as well as us, and if we don't take care of it and preserve it, we're all going to be up the creek, as they say. I also think Mashpee and the Cape have a lot of cleanup work that from things in the past. You look at what's happened on the Air Force Base. If you look at decisions that were made in the 60s and 70s of not to sewer, we've kind of ended up in this position with our groundwater and the nitrogen levels because, people didn't make, well, they probably made informed decisions, but probably not good decisions for now going forward. And then you lay on top of that the climate change and the fact that we're going to have bigger storms, as was seen in Florida, as well as rising sea levels. So I've also seen where small changes or attention to the environment can result in big efforts. So Pompanesett Spit is one of my happiest places on the planet. And I think the work that's been done by Save Pompanesett Bay has meant that the water birds have come back. This year on the Spit, we had 26 plovers nesting there. We had oyster catchers there. We had eider ducks there. So I've never seen an oyster catcher on Cape Cod at all. And, at first I thought they were funny-looking seagulls till I found out what they were. And I'm like, isn't that so cool? And that's been done that. As I have had a 30-year career in corporate America and raised 2 boys, I was much a checkbook philanthropist, right? I didn't have time to give back, so I'm really looking to get a little sweat equity in the game in things that I'm passionate about, and the environment is something I'm passionate about. I think by 30 years at American Express, where I ran compliance programs, did product development, did policy work, and enforced that across our vast network of merchants and banks, makes this almost like the perfect job for me at this point in time, because I see the Wetlands Protection Act, Chapter 172 and 173 is really the policy, product, and compliance program that Mashpee has to protect the environment. So I feel like I've done this job in another life, and I just really need to get up to speed and up the learning curve on the subject matter expert, and I think I could be a real asset to you guys. So that's me.
Terrific, thank you. What I'll do is turn it over to commissioners first for questions that they may have, and whoever would like to go first, please do.
Shauna, do you have any experience reading plans or understanding plans, site plans, and things like that?
So other than I've built 2 houses myself and can do that, not really site plans, but in terms of having blueprints or being able to do technical diagrams at work, that was something I did as I was doing my product development work. So my father was a big builder. I helped him build things and things like that. So it's not specifically subject matter expertise on that right now, but I don't think that would be something that would take me very long to figure out.
Okay. Would you have any problems doing site visits and
No.
understanding, walking around with a set of plans and trying to understand?
No, not at all.
things? Okay,
I'd love to get out my duck boots.
okay. Are you on the board of the PBA?
I'm not.
Okay, okay. So you feel like you would, willing to learn plans and attend meetings and?
Learn plans, 10 meetings. I know there's a lot of the NOAA application that you guys just got. If you needed somebody to help project manage that or do something like that, that would be really up my alley too.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, someone else?
Hi, Shauna.
Hi.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
You said you've been in New York for the last 30 years. I hope you're not a Yankees fan.
I'm not a Yankees fan, and in fact,
Just wanna get
I
that out.
raised Red Sox fans
Okay,
too.
good.
So
But actually, I have a question. I'm curious on your perspective. We get a lot of projects in here that are, say, like a raise and replace. And I'm curious to see, after a presentation was given, and I know there's a lot of different variables to that, but I like to defer to the agents because I've only been doing this for a short time. But if they feel that the project that was presented leaves that property in a better condition that was currently there, is that something that you would consider voting yes on?
So I think Yes, and if you look at, and I'll probably stay a little bit Pompanesett-centric, because that's probably the part of Mashpee I know the most. There's not very much developable land left in Mashpee. And in fact, the town has spent a lot of money and a lot of time buying undeveloped land to preserve that. So, and I think what we have to think about going forward is an improvement of 80% is probably better than an improvement of 0. And I think that's going to be some of the challenges that we all face as we try to kind of do this evolution of, you know, where things are now and where we want to get them to in the future. And, you know, I am a firm believer that, you know, 75 to 95% is better than 0. So I guess my answer to that's a long way into yes, I could see if it was an improvement voting yes.
Thank you.
All set, Rich?
Yes.
Okay, someone else?
Yeah, I have one. You mentioned in your, hello.
Hi.
You mentioned in your letter of interest that you thought the Concom has a critical role to play in addressing Mashpee's problems with climate change and whatnot. What do you feel that role is?
So I think we just, in having watched a lot of the Concon meetings on the Channel 8 and things like that, I've been fascinated about it. But it's all about the floodplain right now, right? The changing the floodplain, making sure that, so that's one thing in terms of erosion, flood mitigation, that all leads into kind of emergency preparedness and things like that. And if you think about, again, this kind of concept of policy, you're here to say how we build and how we change the building in Mashpee has to conform to certain regulatory requirements. And you all are, right now, the judge of will those changes meet the requirements? Or if they don't meet them 100%, how far are we willing to step back? I think then you take on to it, you know, the fact that, I lost my train of thought, sorry, that you guys are also, you know, with the work Drew does in Kent, managing the conservation land. And I'm not quite sure I know, but I think, again, you know, what was what was discussed at the last select board meeting with the big projects that are coming on board for the Mashpee River and Red Brook. I'm not quite sure how the Concom fits into that, but my sense is that you guys do have some oversight or support in those types of initiatives, which are then, you know, rebuilding our waterways, making sure the fish can get where they need to go, and those types of things.
Thank you.
Alex?
Sure. I was just, if there was a full-term commissioner position open rather than like an associate position, would you want to do the full term?
I mean, if you kind of look at my resume, positions of authority are kind of what I've been in. And so, yes, a voting member would be definitely more interested than a associate non-voting, but I also know that sometimes you have to walk before you can run, so.
Okay.
I'm also convinced that if I start to work with you all, you'll love me enough that you'll want to bring me and get me going into to more stuff.
I love that. Thanks.
Sarah? Sarah?
Sure. Hi, Shauna.
Hi.
Thank you so much for coming in
Thank
and
you.
your interest. And I have no doubt that we would absolutely love working with you. I hope that you would still love the idea of working with the commission once you get into it. But the fact that you've watched some of the hearings online is encouraging that you're still here.
Yes.
And I saw something in your letter of interest that talked about customer service. And so I just wanted to ask a little bit about how you would envision that being maximized in terms
Maximized?
how you would leverage that experience
Yeah.
in your role here, even just as a person participating in the
Yeah.
deliberations, because I will say, just to preface that, you know, we do have authority through the local, Chapter 172 and Chapter 173, those are our local bylaws. There are also Massachusetts, Code of Massachusetts Regulations, CMR, the Wetlands Protection Act, and then there's Massachusetts General Law. There are two sections that give authority to the CONSCOM, and our scope is pretty concrete.
Yep.
And it's pretty finite, and we are here to protect wetland resource areas. So customer service or community engagement is what takes place during the hearings, but as you've seen, that's only a part of what we are responsible for. It's our butt if some of these things aren't done.
Yeah. So I think, again, what kind of sparked my interest to sit in there, not beyond like water, is like one of my hot buttons, is I think you guys do create some friction with, in the meetings and things like that. And when I talk about customer engagement, there have been times that, and, I'll just give an example of, part of my role at American Express was our data security program. And can you imagine going to TJX after they had the biggest data breach in the world and telling them I wanted to collect millions and millions of dollars from them to recoup, to get back to fulfill American Express's obligations on, how we had to notify customers, replacing cards, fraud losses to our banks, and having to come out the other end of of that process with a merchant that still wanted to do business with you, right? So I think there is opportunity for this group, and I think I bring skill sets to maybe have a little more kind of on the front foot in terms of how do you engage your stakeholders in your community, the community on this. That I don't know what that looks like right now, but there have been, thousands of instances over the course of my career where I have been asked to do really ugly things with customers. That meant that I had to not only do what was right for my business, but keep them engaged and happy to do business with us at the end of the case. So I think those are the things that, if you're looking to build outreach programs, communication to the community, a product management and how compliance works and how you talk and engage your customers was something that I had in. So if you were looking to do more of that work, I have tons of experience in how you put together those types of, marketing campaigns, educational programs, that types of things.
Thank you.
All set? I guess we're good. I'll ask one last question. Just from listening to the responses to the questions, it's apparent that you have a lot of homework to do in terms of learning all the rules and the regulations that we have to follow. I believe, Steve, is that your binder that's the side of you?
Yeah.
That's kind of the rule book. It's a light 10-minute read, so to speak. But my question is this. As a commissioner, when you come on, we all belong to the Massachusetts Association of Conservation Commissioners. It's a nonprofit organization that offers all kinds of services to commissions. One of the services they offer is education and certification, and that's through a series of courses that you can take either face-to-face or online. Would you be willing to sign up for a series of courses in order to get your fundamental certification of a commissioner? The fee is taken up by the town, so there's very little cost to you other than your time, your homework, and everything else. But would you be willing to do all that work?
Absolutely.
Great. And one last question. How are you at picking the ticks off your legs and walking through brush and brambles and swamps and mud?
So no problem with that. I had anywhere from 8 to 25 horses growing up, so I've mucked stalls.
There you go.
I was a biology major and was known to eat cheese and crackers in the anatomy lab, so things that, little crawly things and stuff like that don't bother me. I'm not a big fan of snakes, but other than that,
That's okay.
Neither am I.
There's Paul.
Okay, great, thank you.
Muckmeyer doesn't bother me.
Okay. Well, I guess that wraps it up, unless, Dan, is there something you would like to ask?
No, I should be good.
And how about Drew online? I don't know if he's there or not.
Hey, Drew, you got anything you would like to ask?
Maybe he's muted.
Yeah.
I guess we're good.
Yeah, I'm good then.
Could I just understand what the next steps look like?
Sure. As I mentioned earlier, we will take all of our preliminary evaluation forms and kind of digest those together. And then everything is sent up to the select board.
Okay.
And they are the appointing authority. So at a future meeting, you'll be invited in.
November 18th.
November 8th?
November
18th.
18th, okay.
And they also may ask you certain questions based on your letter or on the preliminary evaluation forms or your resume, whatever. And then they make the appointment, not us.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
So that's the way it all goes. And you're more than welcome to stay tonight if you want to
I
get a
will.
real feeling for it, and
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Fill this out later. Okay. I'm going to move down the hearing list and call the hearing for 226 Pimlico Pond Road. Edwin and Cecily B. Gromis. This is a proposed septic system upgrade. Representative is GeoCape Environmental Consultants. This is an RDA. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Thank you for taking me early. That was unexpected.
Well, it's the new procedure. I'm jumping around hopefully to get some of the more shorter ones out of the way first and then get to the longer ones later.
Glenn Harrington representing the owners, Gromises, of 226 Pimlico Pond Road. There was a transfer inspection done on the septic system. The septic system, the leaching pit failed. And per the new Board of Health regulation, properties within 1,000 feet have to be upgraded with advanced treatment. A microfast treatment tank is proposed in place of the existing 1,000-gallon tank. It is a three-bedroom dwelling. Because of the placement of the well in the middle of the property and at the top of the highest slope, the pump, there's a 3-horsepower pump involved to pump it, the effluent approximately 350 feet up the hill to leaching up to the level part of the property, which is essentially level with Pimlico Pond Road. The work is proposed within 100 feet of the inland bank. The treatment tank is 30 feet from the inland bank, and the pump chamber is just beyond that. And the force main will have to go underneath a portion of the driveway and up the long slope to the flat part of the property. I do have erosion control set from the corner of the house over to an existing shed where the leaching pit and an old cesspool are also proposed to be filled in as part of the repair. Take any questions.
Great, thank you. Questions from commissioners?
Glenn, that holly tree that's gonna come out,
Yeah,
do you have plans to replace that tree?
we certainly can. It's really the only tree that's there, and it does provide some shade to that side of the house, so we certainly can do that.
Yeah, I didn't get out there. What size is that tree right
It's
now?
about a 12-inch tree.
12-inch tree,
Yeah.
okay. So you replace with a smaller holly in
Yep.
another location?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Just to clarify for everyone viewing from home, this is a cesspool on Wakeby Pond that is being converted to an IA system.
There's an existing Title V system there. There is a tank and a leach pit, but there is also a
This-
cesspool that was not filled in at the last upgrade.
I see.
So I'm planning on having that filled in
Okay.
at this time.
Okay, so I was mistaken.
Other questions?
I have a couple. Alex, thank you. That was a really good call out about the cesspool being filled in. Good evening. And forgive me if I've missed it here on the plan. I was just wondering that the depth to groundwater at the site where we're putting the new septic in?
Well, we did not hit groundwater in the test holes, but it's pond level, so it's probably about 15 feet below grade
Okay.
from down at the house level.
I see, okay. And again, I'm not a sanitarian or septic expert at all, but from the plan, I wonder if the septic were proposed on, I guess that would be, let's see, on the west side of the house rather than the east side, we could get it a little further away from the pond? Is there a reason why we're,
Well, the existing plumbing comes out this side
that would
to
make it much
the
easier then,
existing
wouldn't it?
tank.
Okay.
So there is a cellar, but I think it would be a pretty large deal to get it to the other side of the house when all of
Understood.
the plumbing comes down on this side.
That makes sense. I didn't see that from the plan. Thank you. I think that's all I have.
Okay. Anyone else?
My question with the Holly on the B side, but
Yep. Sandy?
No.
Okay. Dan, any?
So the only couple of comments I have, one, if the commission does approve it tonight, could you have that number fixed there? You have the
Yes.
proposed nitrogen loading as 1.5 bedrooms.
It's 50%. You take 50% when you have the D-night.
Oh, so that's what, I just wanted to make sure of that.
Yes.
Okay, I was not aware of that.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
gave, there's a 3-bedroom, for if it were a standard Title V, and then at 50% removal, you use 1.5 for bedrooms with the,
Okay.
for the treatment.
Excellent, I just want to make sure for that. And also, on the driveway itself, when it comes down to the landing, you'll see right here, the picture's kind of rough. There's like a 8-inch ditch right there that the water's building up and just bursting through, to where that shed is. You can actually see the shed right there.
Yeah.
When you're doing the cuts to that section of the driveway, would there be any way to do a stormwater diversion or just fill those cuts with gravel just to reduce the amount of flow that would go down?
Absolutely.
All right, that would be the only thing for me. Other than that, I think this project is, it's an IA system, it's converting it from a standard as well as filling an old cesspool, so that's nothing but a win for us.
You talking about adding a dry well down there?
Not a dry well as much, it's just busting through here. If they could just collect it here, if this whole section of concrete was just gravel, it would catch all the water coming down from that driveway, because the driveway is quite long as it comes down from the main road. But I'm not too worried about that, because the concrete's already in place, and if they're gonna be cutting sections off, they could fill it with gravel, or they could just put a French drain right here, so I thought that would just be good enough. Just because that driveway it's quite long.
It is.
It's quite long, and you can see the water does come down and onto that landing.
It sure does.
So anything that could be adjusted there for any stormwater management would be fantastic.
Okay.
Is Drew online now or no?
He is. I don't know if it has any comment, though.
I'll go out to the public then. Anyone from the public that would like to ask a question or comment? We're all set? Okay then. I'm open to accept the motion.
Make a motion for negative determination for 226 Pimlico Pond Road, with the conditions to replace the holly tree that's being removed with a holly in a similar location, and then adding gravel where the driveway was cut and a drain for stormwater at the bottom of the driveway.
Okay, thank you, Steve.
I'll second.
Thank you, Alex. So the motion is made and seconded and up for discussion amongst commissioners. If there's any further discussion before I call for a vote. Hearing none, I'll take a roll call vote. Alex?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Richard?
yes.
And I vote yes as well. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
All right. I think that was the only RDA, right, Steve? All the rest are NOIs. Okay. going to call the hearing for 1 Mute Swan Circle, John W. Cumming, trustee, the Cumming Family GST Non-Exempt Trust. This is a proposed construction of a single-family dwelling, including porches and deck, hardscaping, landscaping, utilities, and appurtenances. Representative is Baxter Nye Engineering and Surveying. This hearing is continued from 8/22. It's an amended order of conditions, and it's a DEP file number 433024. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, everyone. For the record, Matthew Eddy, professional engineer with Baxter Nye Engineering and Surveying. I'm representing John Cumming, trustee. With me to my right is Attorney Tyler Franklin with Rubin and Rudman, and also here with us tonight is Brad Holmes from ECR. He conducted the wildlife habitat evaluation. So I'll just, if I would, just kind of get to the points and comments that were made at the last hearing. So we submitted a revised package addressing the comments with additional information from the August 22nd hearing comments. I've outlined that additional work and comments in a response letter that you should have before you, and I'd just like to hit on those points quickly if I could, and then we're happy to answer any questions that you have. So the first item, we reduced the footprint width of the house slightly, which allowed us to shift it away from the 50-foot buffer, as commented on by several of the commission members. We also shifted the retaining wall. I'm going to point up here on the screen here. There's the retaining wall here that we shifted. It was coming off of that point of the house previously, so we shifted that over. In addition to the reduction, that width allowed the house to move over. We're holding it right on the setback line here. We're a 1/10 of a foot off the setback line, so reduced that width, which allowed this portion of the house to pull away from the 50-foot buffer a little bit, as well as that the retaining wall there. With that, we have the closest point of the building, which is in this area here, is approximately 5 feet from the 50-foot buffer. That occurs for about a distance of 19 feet, and then the buffer curves away from the proposed work, and so very quickly we get to 10 feet and greater in separation from the 50-foot buffer. Secondly, we added on the detail sheet 2 wall sections as requested by the commission. The 2 sections provided, one is through the foundation of the house, and the second is where the retaining wall meets the house. Those 2 sections that we provided are at the closest proximity to the 50-foot buffer, so you're seeing the most conservative aspect of how the construction would occur. The details show that you can lay the slope back with the topography that's out there, the excavation that's needed, laying that slope back. Steve, we showed it at like a 1/2 to 1 on the layback slope for the excavation, which I think, that might even be able to be more vertical than that, but I took it as, a little conservative, so that it shows that it still daylights the existing topography, inside of the limit of work, no problem at those closest points, so. And then the wall type, we anticipate that to be a segmented retaining wall type, which is kind of it's a masonry, the decorative masonry block walls you probably have seen throughout town. And then the third item was the driveway. We have noted that to be pervious material as requested. So and we've identified that to be for the entire driveway length, even where it's outside of the conservation buffer. And then the fourth item, we submitted the wildlife habitat evaluation as conducted by Brad Holmes of ECR. Again, he's here tonight and happy to answer any questions that you might have regarding that. I would just say in a quick summary, he didn't find any significant habitat issues out there in his study. And then the final item was the commission had asked Drew to reach out to the town attorney for their legal opinion regarding the applicability of the 100-foot buffer and the 50-foot no-touch buffer based on the amended order of conditions. The town attorney responded that it was their legal opinion that that is what is used for this project, the 100-foot buffer. And again, I'll defer to Drew. He said, the dialogue I had with him, he said that he had submitted that to the commission and that has submitted to the record. And again, I'll let him respond with any additional questions you might have regarding that, and also Attorney Franklin as well. So I think with that, that hit the items that I believe you commented on, and we're happy to answer any other questions that you might have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I'll go to commissioners first for questions that you might have.
I can get started. I have a couple questions. Good evening, gentlemen. I think before I move into my questions, I wanted to acknowledge, for the benefit of the applicant and the community that may be at home watching this, that there's a very technically sound rationale behind increasing those buffer zones from 50 to 75 feet for no touch. And the project does not and would not protect that resource area, given the information that we now know. So I want to acknowledge that I'm still pretty uncomfortable with it, but I do acknowledge that town council has agreed that this is what we're going to do. So just putting that out there, so it's all on the table. I did drive by the property, and that lot is one of the more mature forested lots I've seen on Cape Cod. There are some trees that are bigger than my arms could fit around. And so I would like to hear a little bit more about the wildlife habitat evaluation, Brad, if that's something there's space for. I would love a little more information. I wasn't convinced with the memo that, I understand on the data layers on the JIS, that it doesn't check any boxes that would require any regulatory regulation, but I do think absolutely it's significant for wildlife. So I'd just like to hear a little bit more than what's in here about what we're looking at, especially for the naturally occurring vegetation that's going to be cleared within, I think it's about 5 feet of that 50-foot buffer line that we're contouring with the project as it exists at one point. Is that correct?
Yeah, the limit of work is at the 50-foot buffer, but not the majority, not all of it, though. We actually here, I can.
Sure, the closest point. I know
Yeah, the
that there were
closest point is
some other,
50, but then
some
we're
other parts.
we're getting out to, probably
Sure.
on the either ends, it might, it's probably closer to 70. And we also,
Sure.
from the existing order of conditions with the limit of work that was approved on that, we actually made it a little bit better. We pulled the limit of work out and away from, expanded the buffer where we could.
Sure, as much as possible to fit
Yeah.
a 5-bedroom house. So, yeah, I'd love to hear a little more. Brad,
Sure.
if you-
Good evening, members of the commission. My name is Brad Holmes. I'm a professional wetland scientist with ECR. We performed a wildlife habitat evaluation at the property. As you know, if projects occur within wetland resource areas, there are certain triggers that would require a wildlife habitat evaluation. And that is under the state regulations, and the town of Mashpee wetlands regulations also has standards for wildlife habitat evaluations as well. If we were within a resource area, the state has a guidance for a wildlife habitat evaluations, which I included as the Appendix A, that simplified wildlife habitat evaluation. And that goes through certain criteria if there's unique wildlife habitat features on the site, such as large trees with cavities or rookeries for large avian species, or if there's springs or streams or different unique habitat features. That would be something that you record, and the state has a guidance for that. Mashpee doesn't necessarily have that specificity, so that's why we use the state form to bring that into into this project. This project, as you know, doesn't trigger requirements for a wildlife habitat evaluation under the state, because we're not in resource areas, and doesn't require evaluation under the Mashpee regulations. My findings did not observe any of the unique habitat features that the state looks for. There aren't any freshwater mussel beds or mink otter dens or wetland, hummocks and hollows. This is an upland, forested upland parcel of land. It's within your jurisdiction because we have the flood zone, which creates the coastal bank. It's not an eroding coastal bank that provides sediment to a coastal beach, but it's a coastal bank by landform. So as far as the wooded habitat, it's not a beach scenario below that has different habitat that would lead towards the coastal resource areas. It's more of a forested black oak, white pine, pitch pine, typical forest that we see here in Mashpee. As you move further to the east, Unfortunately, this parcel of land has a decent amount of non-native invasive plant species. There's a good amount of morel honeysuckle and oriental bittersweet, which is degrading the site. Mentioning large trees, there are several large white pine trees that are in the area, probably beyond, within that 50-foot and up. The lower portion is where it's mostly find that invasive species. But the white pines are those multi-liter, larger trees. They're, as you know, white pines are faster growing, soft trees. I didn't observe any deciduous trees that were of that size, and I certainly didn't find any trees that had cavities that might provide nesting habitat. The rest, as a holistic view of the property, you have a roadway on one side, being that Simmons Road, or whatever that specific name is, and then it's surrounded by single-family homes. And then to the east, I believe there's somewhat of a stormwater basin on that adjacent parcel before you get to the wetland. So I didn't find anything, in my opinion, unique about this property that would have unique wildlife habitat features, other than it being a dry upland forested parcel of land. That helps to kind of clarify my review of the site evaluation and wildlife habitat. I hope that helps. I can certainly answer any other questions you may have.
Sure. No, I appreciate that. I think when I was there, being next to the parcel on Simon's Narrow Road, the water is feet in front of you. And I could imagine there's a lot of cover provided for foraging and hunting for wildlife. But nesting habitat is significant. If you didn't find any evidence, you didn't find any evidence. But while you're at the table, I wonder, I had a couple of other questions, but if there are any other commissioners that have
Floor is yours.
questions on the.
Go ahead.
Okay, all right, let's keep going. I see that it's a 5-bedroom home on a 28,000 square foot parcel of land, and I didn't see in the packet there had been a variance requested or received from the Sewer Commission.
That's one thing that we had talked about. I mean, the plans are, as far as overall in development for the house floor plans, 4 bedrooms are allowed by right. The owner said 4 bedrooms is all he would request if that was a concern. So there wouldn't be a variance requirement. Again, we're on the
Okay.
Wastewater treatment plant facility, as you know.
Sure.
So this is going to a wastewater treatment plant with, very low, and I think you commented last time that you were very happy about seeing those nitrogen numbers.
It is,
yeah.
sure. But I think it's still, a variance still would be required for flow neutral.
If they did a 5.
So,
yeah.
so the applicant would be satisfied with a 4-bedroom?
Yeah, yep.
Okay, and what about the lawn? Would the applicant be interested in a clover mix to further reduce that?
Yeah, well, the lawn is actually, we're well under the 10%.
Sure. Anything that would require less fertilizer, though, would still contribute to the nitrogen calculations for the lot.
Yeah, and I think, we've identified on the face of the plan, the nitrogen, fertilizer limitations and the type of grass and so forth under the Mashpee regulation for the lawn.
Sure.
So I believe we're meeting that, and I'd say even, gone, a little further than that. But it's fairly, we're not just 10 square feet under the lawn area, we're actually, it's several hundred feet under. And it's really just, the lawn areas are gonna be up, in this area here and then along here. This is all gonna be revegetated. These slopes will all be revegetated. You might have a little bit of a lawn area there and a little bit of patio, so.
What we tend to hear recommended from the agents are a native clover mix rather than grasses. So if the applicant would be willing to consider that, that would be great too.
I mean, I would think he would, would believe he would be willing to consider that. I mean, if that's a condition of approval, I think that would be acceptable.
Well, I'll defer to my fellow commissioners. Thank you very much,
Okay,
Matthew.
thanks.
Thanks.
Okay, someone else?
Matt, thanks for all the changes. One quick question I didn't mention to you on the last hearing is, coming in, I know it's outside the 100-foot buffer, but coming down the driveway, we have the retaining wall, and when you have the sewer line and everything for that excavation.
Yep.
Do you have any plans for plantings out there, or just? to fill
I
in?
mean, there wasn't any plans from I'm sure that at the end of the day, there'll be, landscape material going in there from an aesthetic standpoint, if you will. Obviously, everything will be stabilized, so it'll either be landscaped areas or lawn areas. But beyond that, there was no, specific planting criteria along the edge of the driveway.
Right, yeah, I'm just curious and saying, okay, yeah, it looks like, with the wall, by the time they excavate for the wall, there's, a little bit of area there. I don't know how many trees could be in there. And then on the east side too, it looks like, you'll have enough room to keep a bunch of trees, but yeah. I didn't
Yeah,
know
right,
if the-
yeah, exactly. Some of the
Landscaped,
existing vegetation can be maintained. And again, understanding this is, a lot in Willow Bend, which, most, if not, I'll dare say, all the lots out there are very well, landscaped and maintained.
Okay, great, thanks.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Good. Matt, I've got a question for you. In looking at the September 27th letter, you've reduced the footprint and the width of the house. I know it's been changed a few times, and I'm looking at the plan for planting, and I believe that the figure that we're working with is 1,372 square feet plus 289 square feet for a total of 1,661 square feet. It's right below the call-out on the planting schedule.
Yeah?
Is that the total amount of land area inside the 100-foot buffer to the coastal bank that's being cleared? That's my question.
As far as the planting areas that are called out? No, that's not.
Yeah.
We call out the planting area 1 and 2, is that your question?
Yeah. I'm trying to get a handle on
Yeah,
the
the-
square footage that's actually being cleared that's inside our jurisdiction on that coastal bank.
Can't tell you off the top of my head. I don't have the entire NOI here with me, but that's not the area that's cleared in the 50 to 100-foot buffer. Those two areas are the planting areas. Planting area number 1 is
Okay.
13,072
Right.
square feet that's being replanted. So it's basically just trying to identify, hey, this is his area that's going to get disturbed for grading and so forth. And then it'll be replanted with buffer plantings and, native buffer plantings to,
So
for
it's not mitigation.
habitat stabilization, et cetera.
Well-
And then you have the planting area number 2 on the other side of the house, which is 289 square feet.
So it doesn't have to be exact, but what I'm trying to get a handle on is if you look at your two call-outs between the 100-foot buffer and the 50-foot buffer,
Yep.
how much of that land is being cleared in terms of square footage?
Yeah, Paul, I can't tell you off the top of my head. I'm pretty sure that was in my original in the original NOI filing, I think. I don't think I have that number.
No? I mean, it's substantial.
I'm sorry?
It's substantial clearing, right?
Oh, yeah, I mean, yeah, a good portion of between the 50 to the 100 feet is gonna be cleared. I'd say, it's probably, 75% of that area will be cleared. I mean, the original order of conditions allowed actually that limit of work, which was
Building envelope, yeah.
the entire thing. I mean, that's why we tightened it up from that as well. But yeah, I mean, there's a good amount of clearing in the 50 to 100.
Yeah.
But again, the limitations of, the lot and the lot size, lot lines, setbacks, et cetera, the requirements of, house type in Willow Bend and so forth. This is actually a smaller house in Willow Bend, actually, just from a relative standpoint, I'll say, so.
Okay. That's the only question I had. Dan? I believe
no.
all seven commissioners, right?
Rich, do you have anything?
Negative.
No, I think the project, undeveloped lot, you're putting a bunch of plantings in, as well as you have the lawn down below 10%. Dry wells, the whole 9 yards. With these areas in town, I know one of the things the commission has been up on is when the retaining wall's being built, having like weekly reports submitted. to the, just when the retaining walls are being built, the original one. Just so we know it's structurally sound, and there's no issues going on during construction of the retaining wall for the safety of the bank.
Yep, okay.
Something like that, I think, would be appropriate for this, considering that there will be quite the amount on the property being built,
Yep.
Especially on the frontage. So, but other than that, I think the project's good overall. The reduction in the house size, as well as bringing it back off the work limit, is a huge deal, because you lose square footage of the house and you increase some native areas as well as increase some planting areas. So I think that's a good project overall. And the access from the main road there on the circle is very limited. So it does limit the aspects of what this usable lot space is. So yeah.
Thank you.
All set? And Drew's not commenting?
Hey, Drew, you there if you have any comments?
No?
I guess not.
I'll go out to the public
Yeah.
and come back. Questions from the public, if there are any questions or comments on this project? Don't see any. He's still not connected.
He's unmuted, that's for certain.
Might have some technical difficulties.
But Drew did have his comments submitted on the
Yeah, they're on
comments
the
as well,
sheet.
on the sheet.
Okay.
So,
Yeah. Okay. All right, then. I would take a motion.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, make a motion for closing issue for 1 Mute Swan Circle with the conditions of weekly reports for during the construction of retaining walls and the foundation for erosion control during that part of the construction. And then all the way, I would say, because of the steepness of the site, until the plantings are in and everything's finished, I think we ought to have weekly reports all the way through till that point.
Weekly reports during the entire construction
Yeah,
phase?
yeah, because, actually, the house that was across the street on Simon's Narrow Road, it's under construction and was there for several months, and they're having erosion problems.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So this is in the same area, so we ought to just be careful all the way through, not just on that one part of the construction.
Understood.
Yeah, because the bottom of Simon's Narrow Road was filled with sand from that construction. And that house was framed up, but nothing was done with the landscaping, so.
Understood.
Any other conditions?
I think that's it. Everything else on Drew's comments were met. Yeah, so I think we're all good
It's
there.
proposed as a 5-bedroom, but I think there was an agreement to 4. That should be on the motion,
Okay,
I would believe.
if that's, yeah, and then we'll do the condition for a 4-bedroom house versus a 5-bedroom house.
Yep.
And the lawn? Was there agreement
Yeah,
on?
right, for the clover.
Michael Clover lawn?
Yeah.
Is that
Yep.
fine? Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Let me just get that. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Is that Rich?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, motion made and seconded and up for discussion amongst commissioners.
Can we just confirm my understanding that mitigation wouldn't be required for all of the alteration of the vegetation in that 50 to 100-foot buffer to coastal bank? That we don't need those numbers?
Well, that's why I was trying to get a handle on the square footage that's going to be eliminated.
Right, like what is being altered?
Right,
Because then, is it actually being mitigated for, or are they just replanting the area that they're altering anyway?
right.
That's my question also.
Could I,
Hang on, we're in discussion.
I know,
Let's,
that's why I'm asking.
what I'll do, Matt, is I'll wrap up the deliberations, and before I call for a vote, if there's something you want to add in to clarify, then I'll allow that, okay? Go ahead, Alex.
I'll just also say, we keep having people say to us that there are no more developable lots. Like, every lot is built out, and then somehow we keep having these, like, untouched native vegetation lots come before us to be heavily altered really close to our resource areas. And frequently, people are telling us that, oh, there are no more, we've developed them all. Well, this is a case where, that's what we're looking at. I don't know that they can meet the mitigation requirements that I think there would be when I read the mitigation regulations. I don't know, no one else is talking really about it. But the only way that I would say yes tonight is because they lessen the bedrooms and because town council told us that our new setbacks don't apply. But I don't think it's a great project.
Okay. Anything else? Nothing? One of the concerns that I had, and that's why I asked the question, I believe that, obviously, we're not talking about a sediment-producing coastal bank. This is a vertical buffer, which certainly establishes a lot of storm water protection. When I look at CMR 1036, it says, any project on such a coastal bank, and they are referring specifically to a vertical buffer bank. Any project on such a coastal bank or within 100 feet landward of the top of such coastal bank shall have no adverse effects on the stability of the coastal bank. That's, as a commissioner, I would have to probably say, well, let me wait and see what happens when they start cutting down all these trees and we have some kind of an issue, then is that bank going to be in jeopardy? But I've also been reading the Coastal Zone Management Coastal Manual, and they specifically address vertical buffer banks. And in regards to 310 CMR 10.306, general projects, and they refer to creating large impervious surfaces landward of the coastal bank that increase stormwater runoff may also increase erosion of the bank and decrease bank stability. Removing natural stabilizing vegetation to plant a lawn or improve views can reduce surface and groundwater uptake and disturb soils. And then it goes on to say, see the typical project activities. And they go further with those, and they talk about even the increased amount of people that are now on the site that are walking around that can cause harm to the vegetation that's remaining in place, that could begin to have stormwater runoff and gullies. And I keep thinking of this wall, and we had a lot of comments to, let's push it back, let's get it away from that limit of work, so there's enough room to get the foundation in. It's a tight squeeze, and I know the applicants say that, well, this is what Willow Bend has in their covenants, big houses. We had a project earlier, and we asked the applicant to go back and see if they could get that restrictive covenant amended or changed, or at least be given a variance through the HOA. But I don't hear any of that talk here. My bottom line is, I'm really not thoroughly convinced that in the end, this project is going to offer no adverse effects to the stability of that bank. I'm just not. But does it meet the criteria for 172 and all of the regulations that we have? I guess it does. Does it allow a conservation commissioner under 1036 to feel as though there is an adverse effect and not being convinced beyond the preponderance of doubt? I don't know. So I'm having a hard time with this one.
Do we need clarification on, like, how much air is clearing in the mitigation?
Well, that's the door I was knocking on. I wanted to know, how much vegetation is actually coming out? Because we all know, when this vegetation comes out, all that root structure is now non-functional. So, and houses don't get built overnight. So we have a potential problem sitting there until everything's finished and stabilized and all of the systems that were proposed to us to meet the regulations are in place and functioning. That's a long haul. You said that when we were talking about the one across the street. So what happens in the event if some catastrophic storm comes along for our neck of the woods in the middle of this? I think we're so close to this resource area. and pulling the wall back to get it away from that 50-foot buffer zone, we don't have a lot of wiggle room here. So I don't feel comfortable.
So in the, like Matt mentioned, the original NOI, it had the area that's being cleared out. Do we have that, Dan, that we can pull up and see what that number is? If that's going to answer questions from Alex and Sarah? and
The
Paul?
original NOI for this proposal.
Yeah, that's
It might not be in the amended, though.
what Matt just mentioned in there.
Like-
Yeah, I'm just seeing if it's on the DEP form. Sometimes. Does that look about right? 59?
Yeah, I think so.
990?
So I actually added into that form, trying to give you as much information as I could, because it really talks about, it's about impacts within the bank itself, but I added in the buffer area, because there's no impacts in the bank, it was just buffer area.
Right. So 5990,
Yeah, that's just for buffer.
Roughly 6,000 square feet of disturbance, and we're putting back in 1,661 square feet for mitigation.
yeah.
Mr. Chairman, would it be okay if I respond with some info that might help, or are you?
Sure, go ahead.
So just to try to respond to some of the comments that you raised. So just from a mitigation standpoint, and correct me if I'm wrong, and Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, but from the clearing outside of the 50-foot buffer, I don't believe there is, whereas everything is fully vegetated inside the 50-foot buffer, I don't think there is any specific planting mitigation requirements. We actually added the additional planting of buffer material, buffer plantings, to kind of, it's gonna get cleared, it's gonna get graded, but then reestablish it with buffer planting, so that's, you really, that area is gonna, understanding its construction, and it takes time for it to stabilize and so forth, and it'll fill in and so forth, but those areas that we're replanting will then become really naturalized buffer areas again.
Sure.
Just as far as a first point. Additionally, if you recall, the original order of conditions, there's mitigation and significant mitigation that was provided for this project and the one across the street with the 13,000, roughly, approximately, removal and eradication of the Phragmites. And then there was also all of the water quality and stormwater management improvements that were done at the cul-de-sac on Simon's Narrow Road. Those were all mitigation aspects of the original order when it was approved to help mitigate the project. So those, I think, are significant and shouldn't be forgotten about. Because I know they're not in front of us right now, because he's actually been doing the Phragmites, he's been paying for that for the past several years now. And I believe the stormwater management improvements are in, and, just, they might have to have some final stabilization and so forth. Couple other things too, understanding we do have the coastal bank, and that is that's what's setting the buffer really for this project. We are about 200 feet away, I think it was 195 feet from the BVW, and over 200 feet to the salt marsh. So the significant buffer is provided to the, what I'll say, a little, they're all sensitive resources, I understand, but a little bit more of the more sensitive salt marsh and BVW. And on top of that, with the removal of the Phragmites and so forth, that's actually gonna help that salt marsh come back. It's gonna rejuvenate, it's gonna become a healthier system. I mean, so again, significant mitigation from that standpoint. As far as stability of the bank, I understand your thought process there and the points that you're making, but I would say as an engineer, and understanding you have a construction process, but 100%, when this is done and done properly and stabilized, when at the end of the day, we have dry wells for picking up all of the roof runoff. We're putting in a pervious driveway, so you will have some runoff on that, obviously, on larger storms, but you do get some infiltration for there. We then also designed it, let me point here. We've designed it so that the runoff, when it comes down, any runoff that you do have is gonna come around the garage here, and then this has been graded, so it's a little bit of a slight depression, I'll say, with a dry well there as well, so it picks up that runoff and it's being infiltrated. We then, again, the plantings that we talked about with these banks here, after being regraded, they'll be stabilized, they'll fully naturalize. You then have a very level area here, small area here of lawn and maybe some patio down low. Lawn here, and then the rest of it is gonna all be vegetated and, again, naturalized through here. So all of the runoff for the house and this driveway is gonna be going into dry wells and being infiltrated. So it really is about I guess, during the construction process, maintaining the limit of work, perimeter controls. I think in a situation like this, and kind of represented on those sections that we put onto the plans, when you're excavating for this, you put in the silt fence and the wattles, and then you'll excavate down from that slightly for the foundation wall and the retaining wall. That excavation in and of itself, and if it's done properly, will actually act as a perimeter control. You think about like a berm or you have an area of runoffs coming down, even if it's, disturbed area, runoff's coming down and it's entering and it's gonna hit that cut bank, so it's not gonna be able to continue down the slope. It's gonna get intercepted by that. Again, sandy soils, it'll infiltrate there. And again, I think to Steve's point about the weekly inspections, I think that'll allow to keep the contractors and the builders, as they're doing the work, making sure that that is all occurring the way that it should. And
Let's take a
Okay.
vote.
I think that's it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anything else before I call for a vote? We're all set? Okay. Alex?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
And I vote no, but the motion carries.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Now calling the hearing for 135 Daniels Island Road, New Seabury Marina LLC. This is a proposed marina expansion and improvement dredging. Representative is Ty and Bond, Inc. This hearing is continued from 4/18, 5/9, 5/23, 6/13, 6/27, 8/8, and 9/12. It is a notice of intent, DEP file number 433283. Do we have a representative?
Yes. Hey, Ryan, are you on the phone yet?
Yes, I am.
Perfect. It's on the conference call. We're having audio issues.
Okay.
So we can hear you, Ryan. Yeah, it's your turn to talk, and we'll see where you're at.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'd love to again prepare indication while we work through our internal things. As I mentioned, Drew, I don't know if you guys have just been no changes. No continuances, I think we're ready for
Sounds like a chipmunk.
We're not going to be able to hear him.
Do you have that packet?
No, I have nothing in mind.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay. I'll stop looking.
Technical difficulties.
Dan, we don't have the, anything printed, right, for that one? No.
No, this one, okay. So the last hearing, literally, I believe Steve was about to make a motion to
Stop this.
close it, and then, okay. So then he said that they needed to request a continuance to go over some housekeeping or whatever on their end. But there was no changes, any of the plans, there was no changes to any of the narrative. They just had to do some housekeeping stuff on their end before they got an approval or not, so. That was it. And he has confirmed that there is no changes to the plans, and I can confirm that because we received no submissions, so. Yeah. I don't know what's up with the audio.
I know it's been thoroughly vetted by the commission
Several
because
times, yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different hearings. Not
Yes.
counting tonight.
Yes, there was multiple different hearings, and also with that being said, there was also meetings with the Waterways Commission as well as with the Harbor Master. The Waterways Commission originally had some concerns, and those were addressed, and there is no concerns from them at this point. They did have a recommended condition on the matter, which is noted in the notes, as well as the Harbor Master. Basically, what it came down to for the Harbor Master stuff is there could be no boat cleats or mooring of boats on the outside of the dock on the navigable channel of the canal. Is the biggest thing that was taken from that, as well as some stipulations from the Harbor Master on, the gas dock and everything. So, but that was it. They had no concerns with it after that. So, yeah. I know some of the conditions that were recommended would be the shellfish conditions, having the shellfish removed in the area prior to any dredging taking place, and then the stock replenished after that. Could be one possible condition, simply because it is a viable area, and there'll be a shellfishing mitigation fee for, I think it was 3,000 and change.
3,060.
Yeah. So that would be covered with that because of the amount of shellfish there is, or possibly is. So
They can't, either they can't hear or they can't talk.
I can't.
I think it's they can't talk.
That's not.
It's showing that they're all muted for some reason, I don't know.
Yeah.
We need to unmute ours?
No. If I unmute, it comes back with a
Oh, yeah, the-
feedback
the
thing. and-
feedback.
Yeah. It's all. I have no control over it. That's the thing. Yeah. That's all.
I think with this project too, it was a decrease in slips.
It was.
Yes. It was an overall decrease in slips.
Bigger
Yeah.
Realignment of the
More
slips
engines.
for-
Realignment
It's
farm.
like, even though it's
yeah.
less slips, it's probably like
Yeah.
4 engine boats rather than one. You're right, but.
So I was ready to make a motion last time, and
I know.
Yeah, there is no changes. It sounds like it was a housekeeping thing on their end between them and their
Why couldn't we
client.
vote?
So.
I can make
Yeah,
make
so-
that motion again.
Before you do, unless there is any further questions or deliberation about the specifics of the project based on what's been previously presented, I'll call for the motion. But if there's anything else that anybody wants to add in, this would be the time.
I wonder if there's anything that can be done to reduce the impacts to the shellfish habitat.
I didn't get that, Sarah.
The shellfish habitat impacts are still quite large and concerning to me. I don't know if there's anything that can be done to reduce that. I would love it if somebody representing the applicant could speak to that, but I don't recall being present for all of these continuances, so my apologies if this was already covered. Do you all recall if this was addressed?
I recall the shellfish constable's mitigation fee. I recall the
Make it
removing all of
translocate.
the livestock before
Yeah.
any dredging took place.
Yep.
And I believe, they're
Yeah, it's gonna be
they're allowed to
conditioned.
seed under there as well.
Yeah.
Once the project is finished.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay, then I'll call for a motion.
Okay, make a motion for 135 Daniel Island Road for a close and issue with the following conditions. A shellfish mitigation fee of $3,060. No expansion of the marina into the navigation channel. All the Waterways Commission comments be a condition. And removal of any existing shellfish stock prior to commencement of dredging and seeding of the area for shellfish upon completion of dredging. And then the harbor master comments about docking, no cleats on the outside of the new docks, and signage, advising there be no docking or mooring vessels on the face dock.
Okay.
So,
What about the waterways?
yeah, and I did mention the waters, and again, I'll mention all the Waterways Commission requirements be incorporated. That was previously given to the applicant, so they have both.
Yes.
Yeah. And then the other waterways conditions, applicant will not come before the committee in the future asking to extend the docks to the south and east. So,
Okay.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded with those various conditions. Any further discussion by the commissioners? We're good? Okay, I'll take a roll call vote. Alex?
Yes.
Steve?
yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
I didn't get that.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Sandy?
Yes.
And Rich? And I vote yes as well. Motion carries unanimously. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Ryan.
They can hear us, but they can't speak, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what it was like last time.
Now calling the hearing for 80 Whippoorwill Circle, Stanley M. and Nina C. Hargis, trustees, Stanley and Nina Hargis Trust. This is a proposed lift of existing single-family dwelling onto a raised foundation, construct and maintain a new addition to the existing single-family dwelling, install associate appurtenances, dry well installations. Representative is Cape and Islands Engineering. This is a notice of intent, DEP file number 433317. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Chuck Rowland, Cape and Islands Engineering. I'm here before you representing my clients at 80 Whippoorwill Circle. I'm sure you guys at least know the area pretty well, but the applicant is requesting permission to unearth the existing foundation situated at elevation 11.6 and lift the dwelling onto a raised foundation at elevation 14.1. We're proposing a concrete garage slab and driveway ground elevation proposed to the east of the dwelling. And we propose to keep the existing driveway. The existing deck, concrete patio, flagstone patio, and basement stairs will be removed. And two smaller decks are proposed on the back, and paved walkway with entry stairs are proposed in the front of the dwelling. The existing septic will remain and stay connected during the construction at all times, and presently the septic system is a sledgehammer IA system. We're proposing 5 dry wells to be installed on the property, and the proposed work is generally in the existing footprint, and it's all in previously disturbed areas, with the exception of the driveway. Prior to the start of work, sediment controls consisting of compost roll with silt fence backing it will be installed as necessary along the property lines to define the work limits, as well as around the native trees on the north side of the property. The entirety of the project is located within land subject to coastal storm flowage, elevation 12. And the project limit falls within the 75 to 100 foot buffer to the salt marsh. Parcel is landlocked and does not border the salt marsh, and the project is regulated under Regulation 25 for all the proposed work. And the naturally vegetated areas is fragmented by the road and the residentially developed neighborhood, and does not serve as a significant wildlife habitat. Proposed gravel driveway will require the clearing of a portion of the area. And the residential lot does not have frontage of the Great River, and the existing proposed dwelling is located outside of the 75-foot buffer. And for landlocked lots, 10,000 to 20,000 square feet, 20% of the lot will be left naturally vegetated. The expansion is fairly modest. There'll be 640 square feet increase of the dwelling and about 1,464 square feet gravel driveway and walkway development. With a lot of it, majority of it only being in land subject to coastal storm flowage and outside of the 150-foot buffer. So essentially, this project is really to bring the existing structure to current flood code standards. With that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you. I'll go to commissioners first for questions you might have.
So Chuck, I see the additions have noted going to be in pile foundations, but the house is not going to be on pile foundation?
The house is gonna, actually, we're gonna keep the existing foundation, we're gonna block it up, and then the garage is gonna be on a slab foundation with frost walls. And then the addition to the south and west is gonna be on, not typical timber piles, but like concrete pile foundation.
Okay. So, all right, so what's the finished floor elevation's 11.6 right now, so you're just going up to
14.1.
14.1, so you're only coming up less than 3 feet in height, right? So, all right, is it a full foundation, a full basement underneath it?
Presently it is.
Yeah, so you're just gonna have a taller basement
They're
there.
gonna, yeah, there's gonna, well, they'll be actually backfilling in there, so that way it meets current flood code
Oh,
standards.
okay, so it's gonna be at grade level then?
Yeah, it's actually gonna be raised above, but yeah.
Yeah, so it's gonna be like crawl space then?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Okay, that's all I have for the moment. Thanks.
Okay. Someone else, question or comment?
You will have flood vents in the, when you do raise the foundation?
Yep.
Okay.
That it, Rich?
Yes.
Just a fence? Anyone else?
I can go, sure.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah,
Sarah.
yeah, thanks. If the purpose, if the compelling need for the work is to bring the home to flood compliance, is there a way to do it without the significant increases in impervious surfaces? I mean, is there a way to do it with the existing footprint of the home? Have there been any alternatives explored?
So really, the only areas that are added increase in hardscape are the garage.
Was the 640 square feet correct, and then the 1,464 for the driveway, right?
Right, and so the you asked if it was pervious, and the driveway, proposed gravel, is a gravel driveway.
Right.
So, do we need a driveway? I believe that we do need a driveway to get, to properly use the garage. You know, having a garage on the Cape Cod, especially close to the water like that, really protects your assets of your vehicles. And I've had many trucks rust out, keeping them next to the ocean. So I think it's a compelling need. I think that switching this from a seasonal house to a year-round house, I think that I don't think it's a very big increase, and a lot of it is outside the 150-foot buffer. Additionally, there's an existing patio off to the west side, and so we are doing an addition generally in that area. So it's a fairly modest addition, and I don't, yeah, so.
Okay, sure. I can appreciate how compelling it is to garage a vehicle. But we are also talking about introducing impervious surfaces to the floodplain, which do impair the functional characteristics. So the question is, what alternatives have been explored to reduce that? And so I'm hearing there's none,
Well,
other than making the driveway pervious?
So, yes, I mean, we're proposing in benefits to the site. We are doing drainage, we're proposing a gravel driveway. I really think that the added structure is going to be very de minimis to the overall impacts of the floodplain.
Okay, thanks.
I have a question.
All set. Sandy, go ahead.
So essentially, there's going to be two driveways, the existing one now and the new one. Has there been any thought to doing away with the existing driveway and putting in more plantings?
If we're open to discuss it if. We open to discuss
Sir, if you're going to speak, you would have to come up to the microphone so that the people in the audience and others on television can hear you. Thank you.
All right, now you good.
We're happy to discuss it if this is what's gonna keep the if it'll, move the project in the.
Okay, and for the record, ma'am, if I can just have your name so we know who you are.
Nina Hargis. My husband and I bought the property about 1 year ago.
Okay.
I mean, I guess the question of do we need a garage,
No.
maybe two.
Well, she's asking more about the driveways, having one or two driveways. But
I mean, the driveway that's there is relatively small, but the concern is without, the lady that was there before had done some landscaping and she put in some steps. Right now, we would have to take those steps out and we would have to kind of undo that because it is the path to the front door right now. So, the way you'd get there is through that path. Sorry, my throat is so dry. Maybe the other element is we're hoping to retire on the Cape and we're not getting any younger. So we'd like to have, a driveway that we could go into if the weather was bad and just get into the house more easily. I mean, just, the other story is that the house has a full basement right now, and we will have to, get rid of that basement in order to raise the house. And some of the utilities are in the basement. So I believe, and I'm gonna have to look at the plan with you guys, is that some of those utilities would actually end up somewhere on the second floor of that garage, because we're gonna have to remove them all from the basement if we destroy the basement. So I think some of, had we been able to keep the basement there, those utilities could have just stayed as planned, right?
But still, I'm questioning why we need to have two driveways. You're taking out 11 trees. So I'd like to
Yeah.
see a little bit more mitigation for that
Yeah.
by getting rid of the old driveway and, putting in
Planting it.
plantings, native plantings there.
I don't think the old I have to look at this again, but the old driveway isn't very long or very wide. I don't.
Right, it's not so much that, it just seems to me to have two driveways. I mean, I offer the garage and
Yeah.
so you can get into the house, the driveway that way. But you're taking out 11 trees.
By the way, we're like tree lovers all day, so our plan is to actually put more trees, in that property. It's got a lot of trees, right, already, but,
it's a fairly unique site where it's a landlocked site, but it is fairly vegetated.
it is.
And so the only trees that we're proposing to remove are the trees that are directly in the area that we are proposing to do the work. We're not expanding any trees that wouldn't be necessary to do the project.
Well, no, I understand that, but
Um,
there are 11 trees being removed.
Yep.
And
So,
I just,
like I said, I think that if we don't, the client obviously doesn't want to give up the driveway, but if the project hinges getting approved on removing the driveway, obviously.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, for me, it's just, I hadn't thought about it that way, it's right there, and, obviously, if we have, my daughter come visit, it'd be nice if she could park her car off the street, but, we
but
want to keep.
you'll have another driveway, too.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, we will, certainly. Yeah, I don't think that's I think if we needed to get rid of that driveway, we would do it. I'd rather not, because I'm trying to think about how we're gonna get into that front door, and do we now need to, cut into some of the vegetation. She's done a ton of plantings. I don't think you can see it on the front, she's
Oh, I
planted
see,
all these
yeah.
nice bushes, and, yeah, you can kind of see all that. I'm trying to figure out, how are we gonna get to the front door with, my thought was, we just walk up there and use the steps that she built. But if not, I guess those bushes could come out and we could get there from the other side. I can't think of how we do it, but.
Any other questions, or?
No, no, no.
Well, I'll follow up, Chuck. So it looks like you're proposing a new walkway from the new driveway to the front door.
Yes.
So if that side driveway was eliminated and that walkway is eliminated, you still have a walkway to the front door from the
I
side driveway.
haven't looked at the plan in a while, but.
So I think that would, that could cover it, but can you change that walkway and that existing walkway from a flagstone to a pervious paver?
We could do a
Make
dry
it-
laid or a pervious paver, or,
Yeah, make it pervious and then, that would, the existing, it's a gravel driveway, so both driveways are pervious, so, it works there, but I'm saying the walkways there is a walkway from, the new driveway in. Can we make that pervious? That would help
I
out.
don't see why not. That sounds good.
Okay. Yeah, and looking at the photographs, I see some of the trees, why they're coming out, because they're close to the house, they're pitch pines.
Yeah.
So they, wouldn't endanger the house if they toppled over.
Anything else from commissioners? Alex?
Good.
So Chuck, why do we not have some engineered plans for the foundation itself? I know Rich had asked about flood vents. I'd like to know where the location of those flood vents are going, how many there are with the
Sure.
building, but we just don't have that information.
So a typical flood vent is one per 200 square feet. Believe that we have added more than we would like, but if you would like, I'll hand you this set of plans and you can keep it for the record. And if you want, I can count up the flood vents real quick.
Sure.
Yeah?
Yes.
1, 2. I believe there's 11 flood vents.
11 in total? Okay. And they're located on the plan, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We'd take a copy of that. You could just give it to Steve. Might want to take a look at those, Steve, just to be sure. My next question is the proposed addition. Is that the total addition that's taking place? Is that the 640 square foot increase? Or is that less than 640 and you're counting in the decks and the rinse station and?
So the 640 is the added structures. So we are removing some of the deck off to the west.
Yeah.
And then we're adding the building and then adding the garage. So that's kind of how I came up with that square footage.
Okay. So. All right. And the rinse station itself, where is that draining to?
Typically, it's just a gravel drainage that we have around it, a trench drain, and then it's not depicted on there, but I'm happy to add a French-style drain around the shower. They don't really create enough water to warrant a drainage structure, but we're happy to add a couple of feet of gravel underneath it.
To be honest, I'd rather see some type of a dry well installation because
We can-
people forget to shut showers off, pipes freeze, and all of a sudden you get a lot of water.
We're happy to connect it right to that dry well that I have running, connected right at that corner.
So you can pipe right into that?
We can put a yard drain right next to the outdoor
Okay.
shower, yeah.
All right. I think that's all I had. I'm all set. No other questions from Commissioners? Sarah?
I have one other one, and just a comment, since Stanley and Nina, you all are here. I understand the building code has the current base flood elevation at 14 feet, and I believe it's a conversation for this commission if that gets revised, but there's a tool called the Massachusetts Coastal Flood Risk Model that for 2070 actually recommends a base flood elevation of 17 feet at your location. So I understand that you all are retiring. Somebody's going to be in that house after you are. I imagine you're spending a lot of money. I wonder if you all would consider raising the house up to meet the current information that's available, understanding that it would not be required by the current building codes or regulations. But it is information that's available to you and I as residents, and something that I thought you all should know about.
We'll definitely consider raising it up higher. I think that the higher you go, the more infrastructure you have to build around it, the more grading you have to do, the more sets of stairs. We are exceeding, I believe we're exceeding the requirements for this area, because we could have the first floor at elevation 13 still meet flood code.
Sure.
But we are going above
understand.
that.
Yeah.
But we'll consider making it a little more flood-proof and putting utilities up higher as best they can.
Future-proof, yeah, absolutely. The other thing I just wanted to note, and I missed this, but it looks like Drew has noted in his comments that there were no waivers submitted for setbacks or vertical walls in land subject to coastal storm flowage. I wonder if we want to talk to the applicant about those or consider them in our deliberations before we move ahead.
Is there a reason, Chuck, that there was no waiver request for 25C7C?
I believe the commission's gone back and forth on that. I did debate whether you wanted me to submit a waiver. I didn't believe I had to at the time, but if you are requesting us to submit a waiver for that, we're happy to do that.
You know the history behind 25C7C.
I have not been at Cape and Islands. My history has been working in Barnstable for 11 years now. I've only been here for not quite a year yet, but I know that my colleagues are very versed.
One of them is down there smiling at me right now.
Yes, I know.
I think it would behoove you to ask for the waiver request.
Okay. You can do that and submit the necessary paperwork with it.
I think with that consideration for the waiver request, you do have some opportunity here with the discussion about the driveway, either eliminating or keeping it. If you eliminated it, obviously with the waiver, you would have to do some plantings for mitigation. That would be a good option for it. Another option would also be for the southern property line, right below the septic leaching field, as well as the east property line on the side of the septic. You could do rows of trees, native trees there for plantings to offset the 11 trees that will be lost, as well as if you decide to request. Yeah, so that could be conditioned as well as I think a waiver should be applied for this just to stay on the safe side. And with that, you'll have to do a couple plantings. And I think that's a adequate opportunity for you to take.
Anything else? Any other questions? Anything else, Dan, that you wanted to add?
No, that's just want to point out the opportunities you have. I would imagine you might be requesting a continuance, so, yeah, no, Sledgehammer, the nitrogen loading will be a little bit lower than what it currently is.
It's a reduction, yeah.
But it will still be under our regulations, so that's perfectly fine. So yeah, the biggest question that came was the driveway, was the offset of any plantings for those 11 trees. And as I said, you have more than an opportunity to do so, whether you decide to ask to keep the driveway and do plantings, or remove the driveway, do plantings, however you want to go about it with the request is going to be up to you, and what the commission wants to approve for that. But I think the waiver will have to be applied for just to keep everything status quo and on the settling page.
Anything else? We're good? So, do you want us to proceed, or do you want to ask for a continuance?
Do you want us to go through the list, Chuck, for items?
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you give me kind of my laundry list of things to do, I can.
Okay.
Okay.
So tie the rinse station and dry well, change the walkways to pervious surface, remove the existing driveway and plant it with native plantings, and add trees along the south and east property lines to make up for the 11 trees that are being removed. I think that was it, Dan and Paul?
And the 2 waivers.
In the waiver.
In the waiver.
Two
yeah,
waiver
in the waiver
requests.
request,
And you
yes.
might as well submit these architectural drawings so the other commissioners will have a copy of those as well, so they can see the flood vent configurations and so forth. I mean, we have this one, we can have Stacy make copies of that, maybe scan it and get it out to us electronically.
We can keep this one, Chuck?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so we'll hold on to this then.
Okay.
So does that help you with the list?
Perfect.
Yep.
So you're okay with a waiver? Sorry, a continuance?
Well, I mean, if we said okay on the driveway, could we vote tonight and not continue, or is that?
I doubt it.
So the commission does have a hard time approving projects in the flood zone without a waiver. So I will say that I feel that would be a risk that you would be taking for tonight. I think one of the safest bets would be get a continuance, have the waiver drafted and applied, as well as any revisions to give the commission a better opportunity. That's all.
Is the waiver related to FEMA at all?
No, so what the waiver is within Mashpee regulations, our bylaws, we have a section for the waiver, basically saying that I want to do something that is not in accordance with regulation. And in this case, what that would be is you want to have vertical walls as well as something within inside the flood zone. So you have to meet a setback criteria for that. Obviously, you can't because you're in the flood zone for the whole lot. So what that means is you would apply a waiver saying we can't meet this regulation because we can't move our house outside the lot for the setback, and that we would like to be waived from that. And part of the waiver criteria is a compelling need as well as offsetting mitigation. And that's why we discussed the tree mitigation out tonight, as well as the compelling need was discussed with one of the commissioners and yourself, so.
So is the waiver for the Conservation Commission to approve the waiver?
Yes, it gives the commission the opportunity and the willing,
So the waiver is
it's for the commission, correct? Yes, it's not, has nothing to do with the state or anything of that nature. This is just for the Mashpee Commission. Yes.
So could we get a continuance for 3 weeks?
Yeah, next one is October 24th. If you want to go then, it'll be 6:39.
Let's go with October 24th.
10:24. Okay. And I don't really need the time.
And I just have to note that the October 24th, they'll be at the library. So, just so you're aware.
Really?
We're being kicked out of this conference room, I guess.
Cool.
Just found that out last
I
week.
like going to the library.
Library's
Yeah,
nice.
it's nice. That's
Bring
a
a
nice
book.
library.
It's warmer. too.
Okay, so we have the request then for the continuance 10:24.
Yeah,
Is there a
so
motion?
moved to
Thank you, Steve.
10:24 at 6:39 PM.
Thank you.
Second.
Second by Alex.
And then the applicant has the laundry list. You have that, Dan, too, right?
Yeah, I got the laundry list. I will scan this and send those out. Yeah, Friday before is the final day for submission, so as you know, so you should be good. See you on the
And
24th.
Alex, you second that?
Yes.
All right. Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote. Alex?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Thank you, Chuck.
Thank you.
Okay. Now calling the hearing for 24 Secaucet Point Road, Joshua and Nicole Delman. Proposed construction and maintenance of a new single-family dwelling with detached garage, hardscaping, landscaping, appurtenances, Title V septic, and construction of a dock with timber walkway, Representative Cape and Islands Engineering. This is continued from 9/26, notice of intent to EP file number 433313. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mark Dibbs, civil engineer with Cape and Islands Engineering. Just a quick note, it was continued, however, we hadn't opened discussion, so, for reasons of a ZBA filing. So this is the first time you've heard this project. So we've filed a notice of intent application for a proposed new house and detached garage on an existing vacant lot, 20,721 square foot vacant lot. It's located to the east of Secaucet Point Road, and it's located to the east. Secaucet Point Road is on the west side of the property. Little River and the associated resource areas, which are land under the ocean, land containing shellfish, a salt marsh, and then an area of BVW are on the east side of the property, as well as the buffer zones are shown from the landward-most resource area, which is that BVW on the property. And to the north and south are two existing residential dwellings. So the project tonight is both the proposed house as well as a pier, ramp, and float. The pier, ramp, and float, actually both projects did gain approval. The house had an approval in 2010, which was extended and actually expired in approximately September of 2023, as well as the dock was approved, and it was actually amended to the current location and approved, and expired as well sometime at the same time in 2023. This new proposal, unlike the previous one you heard tonight, we did relocate everything back to the 75-foot buffer. Basically, the limit of work is shown as a 75-foot buffer. From there, we've proposed the house and a proposed garage. The driveway it's not noted as such, but will be a gravel driveway, so that is not a paved driveway. And we've proposed an IA septic system. There are quite a number of statistics on the plan related to the house. We've achieved both sections. It's not 2A, Regulation 25, 2B and C. We've provided both, we've provided 35% of natural vegetation, that area between the water and the buffer zone, as well as we've also provided the required vegetated buffer strip. And all those calculations are provided on the plan. The house will be built according to flood code. It will have a foundation with flood vents proposed at elevation 15, which is actually 4 feet above the FEMA elevation. And we've proposed minor grading, if any at all. There's a little bit of grading over the septic tank itself. Everything else is within 1 foot of grading to just match into the house. So it's not per se raised by any grading. Access to the house is by stairs and or just close to natural grade. We've provided 10% lawn area. It's basically just that green color is a strip of lawn around. It's almost just minimum access way around the house, as well as the tan color would be mulch and landscaping, and the yellow color would be, again, more mulch and landscaping, but that would just be more ornamental. landscaping. We've proposed dry wells, and basically, we did submit a waiver request for the flood zone, setback to flood zone, so 25-7C. We did note that we were seeking a waiver from, at the end of the waiver request, per regulation 25-2A, it states that a waiver can be granted per 25-2C, which is the 30% natural area. I don't feel that needs the same, it references a specific section that can grant the waiver, so that, in my opinion, it does not need the full Regulation 12 waiver for that particular, because it's specifically saying it can waive it through a different regulation. So we have submitted the waiver request for setbacks. I did not submit a waiver request for vertical walls. I believe your regulation, it's pretty specifically states vertical walls in areas of wave actions of 2 to 3 feet. We are not in that zone of wave action. So in my opinion, that waiver does not apply. We are in this case, the flood zone line that you see, the blue line that runs kind of midway on the pier, is the limb wall line, so we're no longer in the 2 to 3 foot wave action. So it's my interpretation that vertical wall waiver is not required. We did receive a request from the harbor master to provide additional information to him, and I did. I do not know if he has provided a response on his review, so pending whether or not staff has received that response, ultimately, I'd like to answer your questions, but I believe I will be requesting a continuance unless we do have a response. At this point, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
We do have a letter from the harbor master, Mark, for 24 Secaucet Point Road. No navigational or abutting concerns.
Okay.
I'm going to start with the questions. I usually wait and go last, but I think I'll go first. You did apply to the Board of Health for a variance for this 5th bedroom?
We have not formally applied. We understand that is a requirement, and, this project is subject to approval by the Board of Health, if we proceed with that variance request or reduce it to 4 bedrooms. I understand the Board of Health does have to approve this project, and if they deny a variance, we'll propose 4 bedrooms. I mean, that's basically.
But you have not applied.
Correct.
So we don't have a complete filing. You have to have, all permits and licenses need to be applied for in order for the application to be complete. You don't necessarily have to have them in your hand, but, because that was changed by town meeting back, I think it was 2015, somewhere around there. But they have to be applied for, so we really can't go any further. And it's not applying for approval, it's applying for the variance, because we've brought that to KP Law, and they've upheld that, flow neutral, Chapter 108, Sections 5 and 6. So that's the way we're going to call it. It's a variance that would need to be applied for.
Okay. So you will not allow any more discussion? I'll have to request a continuance?
Well, I don't mind listening to what you have to say, but in relation to what I just said.
I guess, would the commission be open to asking any more questions tonight, or so that?
They certainly will, but I didn't know if
Okay.
you had something more to say about.
Yeah, I understand that we need, I would hope we'd be allowed to continue. I'd love to hear other questions if possible.
Sure.
If you just want us to request a continuance now, I can do that.
Okay. While I have the floor, I'll ask another question. I was reviewing the letter from Division of Marine Fisheries. I'm trying to find that now on my screen. For some reason, I don't have it in that folder. But I can remember it. It was recommended that float stops be included on the floats so that they can't go any lower than 2.5 feet. And the height-width ratio was recommended by Division of Marine Fisheries to be 1.5 to 1. So if we have a 4-foot dock, in terms of width, that height would have to be 6 feet. And I think you're at 5 for passage, you know. So going by the recommendation of DMF, you're kind of a foot too low. So I'm a little concerned about that configuration. And was I correct in reading that you asked for a waiver from Regulation 12 on mitigation?
Being that it's a vegetated site, no matter what we do, we cannot provide mitigation. So, and when you, similar to a previous project, when the 0 to 75 has remained intact with the exception of the allowed path for the boardwalk, mitigation was not required. So no, for a waiver from mitigation requirements, no, we did not request a waiver.
Okay, because what I have here is
Saying that, yeah,
saying that you did request it. This is from the agent's comment. Applicant requests a waiver from Regulation 12 mitigation. And that's the way I thought I read it in the proposal.
We requested a waiver from the setback using the waiver section in Regulation 12.
Oh,
Does that make sense?
and not the waiver requirements in the bylaw itself? Because they're different. You know that.
I mean, the section that allows you to do a waiver is in 12, right? 12.4.
Yes. Right.
So.
And the wording of that is very much different from the wording for requesting a waiver in the bylaw. Bylaw is much more stringent. And I didn't write the regulations. I know who did because we ran into some other issues in Regulation 25, but the two don't click. But anyways.
Confused. If requested a waiver from 7C.
Right.
25 7C.
Okay.
Using the section in 12.
Right.
That's where the waiver, right? Isn't that how it's always worked?
Yeah, it refers back to 172.7B, I think it is. Anyways, my last question, then I'll let other commissioners speak. When I was on the site, I had a very difficult time pinpointing where everything was. The staking, quite honestly, was terrible. Whether they got knocked over by somebody or taken out, I don't know. And I'm also seeing that that's a recommendation from the agent, that submission of revised plans showing setbacks from wetlands to work limit is not staked on the parcel. Staking overall is unclear and should be more detailed.
I had the same
To be
problem,
honest, I was
too.
lost when I
Yeah.
got on that site.
We pride ourselves on our staking, so I can definitely respond to that. I'll let the agent know exactly when it's restaked.
Yeah.
I don't know if something might have happened, or if we did a poor job.
Yeah, typically,
We'd be
yes.
happy to restake it and notify you guys of exactly when it's restaked.
Typically, you guys do a good job. I was surprised when I got there. In fact, I was talking to a commissioner on the phone, and he had the same issue. He said, when you get there, you're not going to believe it, there's a little bit of an issue with staking.
We've had stakes removed in the past.
Yeah.
But we'd happy to notify Drew and Dan exactly the day it's staked, restaked, and they can let you know.
Okay, those are my concerns. I'm all set. Anyone else?
I think since we're continuing anyway, you should just read Drew's comments afterwards and incorporate them all. And then consider taking away the patio between the building and the garage, moving the building forward, and then the mitigation that you were saying you can't do on a vegetated lot, you can do because you have the open area that you can then put mitigation in closest to the resource area. So if you bump it forward, you can add plantings, fill that area, and have a better project.
Guess I'm looking at, you saying that all the brown areas can be bark mulch, or? is that what-
Yes.
Yeah, so can we, instead of bark mulch, put in a whole bunch of plantings that'd help out? And then you said that the driveway's gonna be gravel, so we need that
Yes.
noted. And then, yeah, Drew's comment on the setback to the work limit. And then I noticed when I was out there, Mark, that you have one structure, a garage from the abutter, but there's like one or two other structures down towards the water that aren't shown in your plan that I think are really either closer on the property line. When I was looking at the stake, I couldn't tell, I could see the garage was because you had a stake nearby that one, but the
Is
ones
that on the
further
right?
down.
On the right, looking at the water, or the left?
Right.
On the right.
Okay.
Yeah, so you see that garage structure there.
Yep.
And then down where you have the notes that proposed lawn not to exceed 10%, there's like another building in there too. And that one, and then there was a bunch of debris on this property, from the abutter's property too. So.
Yeah.
So if they can remove all that debris, that'd be great also.
Yeah, unless he has that many boats.
Yeah.
It was a tough walk.
Yeah, just walking around there. And then I noticed that the perk test was done 14 years ago. So going back, are you guys confident that that's where the groundwater's at, or, or has the groundwater come up a bit? Especially where it's so close to the Little River.
I mean, the located groundwater, we've been finding between 0.5 and 1. Depending on time of the year, we typically add a Cape Cod Commission adjustment, so then it ends up between 1 and 2. I can just review that, either whether it's big more test holes, or I can almost auger myself for this site down in front.
So- Yeah, I was just
But-
curious, but it's a 14-year-old piece of data.
Was the
so-
elevated groundwater reading it was a different site, was like 79?
Yeah, it's at 79, Secaucet,
I don't know why.
from adjustment at 79. It's
Yeah,
at
I
0.7
I
feet.
remember seeing that as well.
I think that was, and do you have any building plans or, for this, with the foundation, floods, vents, and all that bit?
I believe we do have that level of detail, we can provide that.
Okay, yeah, just see, okay, and then the walkways, they propose to be pervious or impervious?
They can be pervious pavers,
Okay.
if it's not labeled as such, that's okay.
Great, that's all I have, thank you.
Anyone else?
I can add just a couple things. I think my fellow commissioners have done a great job of summarizing a lot of the concerns I had too. When the limit of work is right on the buffer of the no-touch zone, I always get a little squirrely. If there's a way to bump that forward, as Drew suggested, that would be great. I was concerned about the elevation and depth to groundwater, the amount of fill that we're going to be needing here. And then some of the assertions that were in the project narrative just didn't seem to match up with what we're seeing either on the plan or in some of the supplemental documents. So it says that the project is not going to change the surface topography, but it's going to have to, just to bring this house up to code. It also says it's not going to induce cumulative impairment to the resource area's functional characteristics when speaking about land containing shellfish, but there's some pretty compelling impacts from both the Division of Marine Fisheries letter and the Shellfish Constable here in Mashpee. So I would request, since we're continuing, to just consider all aspects of the project and see if there are areas to minimize the scope. We are blowing up this lot and its availability to function, to store floodwater and do all the things we need it to do. So if there's a way to reduce scope, there've been a lot of really great ideas. I think that would just be my general request before we see you all again for this.
Okay.
Okay, anything else?
And then real quick, just to clarify on the setbacks, can you have the setbacks be set up from resource areas and all of that to the limit of work, not to the structure itself? That's really one of the biggest things, just so the commission has a full idea of where everything is.
Sure.
Can I ask one question? As a commission, do you agree with my interpretation of section, the vertical wall section? Is it regarding land areas subject to 2 to 3 foot wave action? If you're not in that area.
It's definitely not a coastal A zone.
Yeah, no, it's not.
So,
Oh,
okay,
I'm
so
very
it doesn't,
comfortable with
that
the fact
section
that
does
it's
not
not
apply to this
coastal A.
project?
Yeah,
Okay,
correct, yeah.
thank you.
Right.
That's all.
Okay, so I think we're
But
good.
the dock is in the velocity zone.
The dock is in the velocity zone,
And
absolutely.
if it was like 400 feet over the line in Falmouth, it wouldn't be approved. Just for the record, they don't approve docks anymore in the velocity zone.
Oh.
And that is like a great stretch of salt marsh that right there is the widest point of it. So I wish it was like different filings, because I can work with the house. The dock is my rub, but.
Yep. Okay, I think we're good. So
Like
you're-
to,
what do we have for dates, I guess? is what we're
So we have
looking at.
October 24th, or you can go into November 14th.
do October 24th.
All right, so October 24th at 6:42.
10:24. I would accept a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Steve.
Second.
Thank you, Alex. Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion on the continuance request? You've got your laundry list, you good? Okay. Let me take a roll call vote. Alex?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Okay.
Mr. Commissioner?
Yes.
Take a 2-minute break so we can use the
Certainly.
facilities.
No,
I didn't make my 8:30 deadline anyway, so what's 2
I
minutes,
know,
right?
feeling.
We're going to recess for a couple of minutes here to catch our breath.
Thought we were doing away with times.
Say that
I
again?
thought we were doing away with times for the meeting.
We are eventually going to. I want to send in some sample agendas to Dan
Oh,
and
okay.
Drew. I haven't done that yet, but I am going to do that. So,
Oh, and we need to, not tonight, for the next quarterly, if there's anything that has to be added to the agenda or anything has to go on it, we're starting to get that into organization.
okay, I
November
actually,
7th, right?
I'm in discussions right now with a coastal geologist that wants to come in and address the commission
Oh,
for the
perfect.
quarterly.
Okay. Okay,
From
perfect.
CZM, so I just have to line that up with her.
All right, so we'll be sending emails out probably next week, just to
Sure.
get that all in line. Perfect.
Yeah.
That sounds great, actually.
Yeah, she's one of the authors of this coastal manual that I was referring to.
Oh, that'll be interesting.
Rebecca Haney, Haney, no relation to,
Oh, yes.
she's up in Boston.
She did a presentation on, oh gosh, gosh, what was it? Vegetation and flood zone or something.
She's good.
Something like that I was on. I saw her speaking.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So Sarah's been talking with her about,
perfect.
floodplain issues and stuff, so we're setting that up to have her come in.
So Paul, you said in November that you're gonna be,
Yeah, 14.
so you want me to chair that meeting?
Yeah, I'll be out of the country.
Okay.
So November 14th?
Yeah,
Okay, so I'm out of the country next for the 24th,
right.
so I'm not here. So we have those two continued. We know they got a laundry list there, so.
Right, as long as they comply with.
What else is on for the
that's where we
24th,
should be.
Dan? I'm gonna miss.
Sorry. 126 Waiting Place is back. 416 Monomoskoye, 26 Pembroke, and then the two tonight so far.
Okay.
Yeah. So. Oh, that's right. Might as well do that now.
24.
Just so you guys know, this is what's happening outside right now.
Really?
Yeah, the
Oh,
aurora
listen
borealis is tonight. And
Did you just take it?
my friend sent it to me. I didn't go outside, I went to the bathroom, but
That's,
it was just like one little flash and that's it.
Did your sunblock
can
on
see it.
when you were out there at night?
Outside right now?
I didn't see it now. Well, he sent it, and
Not
actually,
the
yeah,
best
my
thing.
mom just sent this from southern Mashpee,
oh, wow. That's from Centerville.
so another one.
Wow.
Oh, I want to see it.
Looks nice, that's for certain.
Okay. Let me clear off my screen.
Thank you, Rich, that was a good idea.
Yeah, I needed it.
Okay, everybody's back in place. We can resume the meeting. I'm going to call the hearing for 24 Papaneset Island Road, 260 Heath Street Realty Trust. This is a proposed reconstruction of an existing timber pile-driven pier and existing footprint, installation of a ramp and floats, Representative Cape and Islands Engineering. This is a notice of intent, DEP file number 433318. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Chuck Rowland, Cape and Islands Engineering. I have before you a fairly simple filing. Essentially, we are, sorry, I should probably start at the top. I'm representing my clients at 24 Pompanesett Island Road. And the project includes the reconstruction of the existing wooden pier over Pompanesett Bay. Presently, it is licensed under 3079. And this pier shows evidence of deterioration, is in need of replacement to better withstand the coastal conditions and current use. The pier and floats will be supported by 26 10-inch wide timber posts at the same location as the existing. The existing timber pier and piles will be removed and reconstructed in kind. All work from the seaward edge of the coastal beach will be done from a barge by hand within the 4-hour time span, consisting of 4 and 2 hours after high tide. And all associated work with the access stairs and installation of 4x4 posts will be done by hand. The project has been designed to incorporate construction methodologies and measurements that will not result in adverse impacts to the resource areas. We're going to be using standard avoidance measurements. Any temporary construction-related impacts will be mitigated on site after completion of construction. Essentially, they're going to be coming in, removing the pier, installing a new pier in kind. It's been there since where do we have it? I think since the 60s. But with that, I don't want to kind of keep you guys, it's a fairly straightforward filing. If you guys have questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay. Questions from commissioners?
See how fast we can do this.
Okay.
The agent recommends that it be a consistent width of 4 feet from the beginning to the to the float. Is that agreeable with your client?
There's a small bump out down near the end, yeah.
Obviously, we would like to keep that bump out, but if it hinges on the approval, then,
Okay. So the additional comments he has are that through flow decking be used for light penetration down to the,
do you guys typically require that for piers over the entire pier, or just usually on the inland area, coastal beaches or salt marshes?
we usually say over everything, don't we?
We tend to have it for mostly everything, especially since this is a shellfishing habitat zone.
Okay.
And then, DNR has been like seeding under the dock, and they just would like to continue being able to seed under and around that area for shellfish. So those are his three main concerns. And then any others, maybe we can fire them off quickly. Yeah, Sarah, go.
I have a couple. Yeah,
Yeah, do
ready.
it.
I'm ready, Alex. Let's do this. I'd like to hear from Division of Marine Fisheries, honestly. I don't know. I know we don't have those comments yet, but I would like to hear about them as is required in Regulation 27, I believe. I also wanted to throw something radical out, Chuck.
Okay.
For your consideration. So in Regulation 27, Section 6, our commission is empowered to consider conditioning projects to mitigate the adverse impacts of docks and the maintenance of docks through compensatory plantings. And I wonder if the applicant would consider some vegetation or a vegetative buffer for this installation.
That is kind of a tall ask for this client. I'd have to get back to you on that.
Okay. The other question I have really is for the commissioners. I need a little education on this. I know that we have in our regulations for docks and piers, there's a limit to float size. I believe it's 200 square feet, and with what I see proposed, cumulatively, we exceed that, so.
Yeah, I think we're at 360 with what's being proposed.
Right.
Yeah, this was,
Replacement, right?
yeah, this was built prior to the enactment of everything,
Sure.
the Wetlands Protection Act and everything, so it is, lack of a better term, grandfathered in. We encounter these quite the bit in town for older dock systems that want to be rebuilt or reorganized. And it is one of those things that they have had prior to the conception of the Wetlands Protection Act, so it's kind of grandfathered in for this float size, unless the applicant was willing to reduce the size, or if there was a back and forth or whatnot. For discussion, there could be an option for that.
Or if they could mitigate the square footage.
Vegetation. Yeah. So that would be a request.
Actually, I was going to ask the same question, because when you look at the photographs, the floats are not configured like this. There's a single float off of the pier, and where our regulation only allows 200 square foot float maximum, I was going to ask the same question. And I thought I read somewhere in the project proposal that Chapter 91, it was previously approved in Chapter 91, but I'd like to see that. I'd like to see that license, a copy of that shows 360 feet of float being approved, because it flies right up against Regulation 27 for us.
Right. It says that Chapter 91 license, I believe, was in 1993.
Yeah,
So,
but I don't want to take somebody's word for it. I'd like to see the license.
yeah, same. I'd also like to hear
We
from
should have-
DMF before we.
Do we have a copy of that in our files? We should have copies.
Oh, most definitely. Yeah, if they had, yeah, we have it. We have it.
Get that out to all the commissioners, if they have that for their records. Other questions?
Yeah, I just have a comment.
Sure.
On the bump out that's there now, is there a power pole or a lighthouse there for dock power? The reason why I ask is the compelling need is, I've installed a few of those, and it's not, 4 feet isn't that wide. You put a power pole or a lighthouse, however you want to define it, it does become a trip hazard.
I don't see one in that.
No, there's none in the photograph.
Okay.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
There's not even a railing on that side of the dock right now, it just,
Yeah, one side has taller piles than the other.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's just wide open there, so.
Obviously, with your questions, we'll have to request a continuance. We're happy to get you the existing Chapter 91 license and the previous approvals. To my understanding, everything that's there is approved, but we can obviously go over that.
You looking at October 24th, or?
Yes, please.
So October 24th at 6:45.
Okay, and you are all set with all the different issues, Chuck, and requests? You got a list of those, so you can speak with your client.
Essentially, you're asking about the bump out and the Chapter 91 and whether my client would consider adding plants to the.
Mitigation, right.
Huh?
I don't think there was anything else.
The
Through flow
mitigation
decking.
or reducing the float.
What's the proposed height on this? Because I'm sure DMF is gonna come back with the same.
So we're gonna replace it in kind. Usually, I think that the DMF comment was, I don't know if that was 1:1 or 1.5:1 for light penetration, or if that was for access.
Light penetration,
penetration.
Was it for light
50/50.
penetration,
Yeah.
so,
Right.
we're at elevation 5.5, and the high grade there is at 2, so I think that with the flow diffuse, or through flow decking, we're gonna meet the light penetration, but
What does our regulation call for, 65%?
I believe ours is 50/50. I want to say off the top of my head, but I could be
thought I
wrong.
read 65 somewhere. It could have been on one of the footnotes from a DMF letter for 24 Secaucet, but I thought regulation 27 calls for 65. So I can probably verify that, going back to the Secaucet one, hold on.
usually they don't have they're not as restrictive on the maintenance of existing versus permitting of new.
27, hold on, I got it. Grandfather docks.
Is this the DMF letter for?
65% light penetration. It's 27A12. Planking spacing shall be a minimum of 3/4 inch. However, where any portion of the dock, walk, ramp, pier, et cetera, crosses a salt marsh, a minimum of 65% light penetration is required.
Right, and we're not crossing a salt marsh.
There's no marsh there at all?
No, it's next to it.
I thought there, no?
See, if you zoom in right there, it's right.
Because there's no light and it's been there since the 60s.
Yeah, you can.
There could be a salt
you can
marsh.
see
I know
it
I'm
on
mixing
the,
the two up because
Should
it's
be
24
salt.
Secaucet, 24 Pompano.
Right.
I mean, it's, you're not wrong. I mean, it's on the site. It's just not underneath the dock.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's usually what DMF has those comments about,
Yeah.
but if you require them for.
They
it's just-
typically
it's a-
go
it's-
1.5
It's
to
considerably
1.
different construction methodology you have to use. You have to be
Right.
very accurate with your piles, spacing, and you're not really given any chance to correct things or make
With the
adjustments.
through flow decking?
Yes, because the through flow decking is like fixed 4 feet wide, and the holes are already lined up on the through flow decking, so you're,
I mean, I've worked with through flow decking sections that are 18 inches, and they're like boards that are just screwed down that you can pop up or pop them down.
yep, exactly.
So,
And so when you do that, you have to set your stringers exactly where the
for the
holes are,
width.
because you don't get to just like create holes, so if you have,
I see.
but, I mean, if that's what gets the project approved, that's what gets the project approved.
I see what you mean.
Okay, we're good? Motion made and seconded, nothing else. I will
We didn't make a motion yet.
It was to
I
continue.
thought it was made and
You made the
seconded.
motion to continue, and I seconded it.
Oh, okay.
I swear. You did? It was like
I
8
wrote it
minutes
down.
ago, but it happened.
I did. I wrote it down. I've got one Steve, two Alex,
Okay.
so.
Yeah.
I was just checking with Chuck to make sure he
I
had
wrote
his
it
laundry
too,
list
so-
before I call for the vote. Okay, roll call vote. Alex?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
And Rich? I vote yes as well. So
Thank you.
See you on the 24th.
And you thought that was gonna be straightforward.
Just a little bit of housekeeping. We have two certificate of compliance requests. One is 83 Bayshore Drive, Richard Whitmere, and the other is 81 Bluff Ave, Ryan and Crystal Lenhart. Both of these projects have passed inspection, so we're good on those. You'll be signing those.
Yep, no concerns there, so I have them tonight for signing.
Concerns. Okay. Backing up, don't anybody leave. I know you said you might have to get out of here at 9.
I was planning on it. I still am.
I want to drop down on our discussion list to Chapter 173 Conservation Land Bylaw Final Draft, Vote to Adopt. A file of this proposed language was sent to all the commissioners. We discussed this a little bit at our last meeting, and we requested the agent to send that final draft out. It has been sent out. So I would ask if any commissioners have any objections to the language, or are you okay with that, or is there anything else you wanted added or changed? If not, I would accept a motion to approve the draft, but I'll listen to any questions or comments first.
I have a question. I'm going to be very quick because I want
Sure.
to make sure we get this in before 9 PM. My first question is just on the formatting. Do we have to have it in bold what the fine is at the bottom? Is that a
Just kinda.
necessary touch?
I don't believe it's necessary. I don't think anything has to be bold-faced or underlined or anything. as long as
Maybe
it's-
on a sign, you know, I wondered what the reasoning was for that. And then I was just poking around in the Conservation Commission Act. And there was actually a dollar limit on the tickets that could be imposed of $100. So I just wanted to check. I know we have $300 listed
We do have 300.
as a
listed.
penalty there. So I just wanted to make sure that that number's correct.
To my knowledge, it was correct.
Maybe it's like a local home rule, we charge more. 'cause
Yeah, it was
everything else
$300. It was 300 per resource area offense and per
Okay.
offense, up to a maximum of 50,000, I believe it was.
If it is an error, it would be caught by legal counsel once we move it forward.
Okay, great, well then we're off the hook. I just
yeah.
wanted to point it out.
Yeah, the number is correct, so,
Okay.
yeah.
I think the language is great. Thank you for your work on
Okay.
it to the committee. Yeah.
Any other questions or comments on that? Okay, so I would accept a motion by a commissioner to adopt the language as presented, so we can move it over to
So
legal
moved.
counsel. Thank you, Steve.
I'll second.
Thank you, Alex. Further discussion on that language? Hearing none, I'll take a roll call vote. Alex?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Motion carries unanimously.
Hallelujah.
Thank you.
One finish.
We talked to, let me get these minutes out of the way. I think I can dispose of them very quickly. The draft minutes of September 22nd, 2022. The only people eligible to vote would be myself, Alex, and Marjorie. Marjorie is not here, but I am, and so is Alex, and that's a majority of the people that can vote, so.
And I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I looked at them, I didn't see anything wrong with them, and I would have to second that motion even though I'm sitting in the chair. Any discussion, Alex?
No.
Hearing none, roll call vote. Alex?
Yes.
Paul? Yes. Motion passes unanimously.
Great.
The other set of minutes which we can do are the 8/15/24 quarterly update meeting minutes, and being able to vote on those would be myself, Steve, Alex, Sarah, Marjorie, and Rich.
I don't think I was there. I
According
have
to the
no
minutes-
memory of it. So it is possible, but I really don't think I was there.
Hold on. According to the draft,
Unless I attended virtually.
You
Was
did.
that one where I attended virtually?
Alexandra Zolo, member Zoom, you left the
Okay.
meeting at 7:47 PM.
Okay. I stayed for like an hour.
Well, no, it was 6, it started.
Okay,
This is a special meeting.
okay.
So I had one issue with these minutes, and I know you had mentioned it before, Alyssa. It says, schedule execution session.
Oh, yeah.
I think your spell check might have caught that regarding 425 Monument Square Road, so that,
Sounds like.
that execution would need to be cleaned up a little bit. And also,
Like that, doesn't it?
I had an issue with the vote endorsement on Richard. There was a discussion about conflict of interest training, and it says, training compliance, ensure Mr. Saul completes the required course. I also mentioned that we had 2 commissioners that hadn't taken the course, the other being Sarah Thornburg. So I didn't want Richard just to be singled out as the only one that was
It is completed. I've already,
perfect. But these minutes, I wanted
yeah,
to,
yeah, I get
I
you.
wanted to reflect that it was not directed at you specifically, but I was getting concerned as chair that we'd have 2 commissioners sitting here voting, and we don't have a certificate on file with the town clerk that they've passed the course for conflict of interest. So if we could clean that up just a tiny bit. The software name that you had asked about, Alyssa, in that set of minutes, I believe it's Permit Eyes.
Oh, yeah.
Is that's what it's called?
Yes,
Permit Eyes?
permit eyes, all one word.
Permit Eyes, all one word. And I didn't see anything else. I do read these minutes. So, if there is no questions on the minutes, I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Steve. Motion to accept, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Sarah. Let me get that, just in case he doesn't have it.
Okay, so for 9:20.
Steve, to Sarah. Okay, motion made and seconded. Roll call vote, Steve,
Yes.
Alex,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
Rich,
yes.
and I vote yes as well. Motion carries, I would say unanimously, but not because Marjorie's absent. And Sandy, you were not at that meeting. Didn't mean to leave you off, but that's why you weren't. I did mention to the gentleman that was here for public comment that I would discuss a little bit about Regulation 25, and it's going to be very little. We have not met since our last meeting as a bylaw review subcommittee, so the place where we're at with reviewing commissioners' concerns is where we left off at that last meeting, and that is that we have completed all of the concerns that Steve had put in, because he had met with that association for a couple of hours and had not only his own concerns, but their concerns all listed, so we kind of went through that whole file. And some of those obviously are going to double up with other commissioners' concerns that would be similar. But until we sit down and take the next batch, I know, Sarah, you had quite a few that you submitted in writing. And
We did, I thought we did some of Sarah's too, though.
I don't think we did. I think we just stayed with Steve.
I thought we did.
But in any event, we still have homework to do. So we're going to have to schedule another meeting soon of the subcommittee and move ahead with that, because we're close.
Can I officially remove myself from that subcommittee? Please?
You could, and then we would discuss replacing you as a commission.
Okay, can we
because I
do that
believe
real
that
quick?
would be the commission's.
Do you want that on the next agenda?
I just don't want to be on it anymore.
right.
I don't want to be emailed about it. I don't want to
don't
have to
wanna-
think about it. Like, I don't have the bandwidth for it.
Okay, we can look at putting it on the next agenda then, or an agenda after that, to have it
Yeah,
discussed, basically.
I'd rather go with the agenda next, because the one after that.
I know. Does it need to go on the next agenda?
It could go on the November 7th one,
There's only one in November, so I was gonna say it has to be.
quarterly.
Oh, November,
There's two.
it's a quarterly,
There's
correct.
7 and 14.
Yes, so we'll go with the quarterly then.
So we could do it on 7. That'd be a nice night to do it, because we wouldn't be under the pressure of any hearings and,
Yeah.
the clock is
Yeah,
ticking.
that's a good idea.
You know,
All right.
that'd be the time to do it, because we can discuss replacing you. Not that anybody could replace you.
No, they can, easily. I haven't done
Sarah
anything.
wants to.
Okay, the other thing that's critical tonight is us to vote on the Conservation Commission schedule. And that's in your binder. We had talked about this previously. The only issue that it comes down to now is, do we want to start at 6 or do we want to start at 6:30? Quite honestly, we've done both. I'm okay with either one, but I'm not a working parent with children at home, so I'll take any quick comments, but I would like to entertain a motion to accept this schedule one way or another tonight if we can.
I'm fine with either one, it's up to.
You're fine either way.
Yeah, I'm fine either way.
You're fine either way.
I think if it's at 6, it needs to be on Zoom. I think if it's at 6:30,
I'm not doing
it can
Like
stay.
it is.
Yeah, but it's too hard with dinner and everything else to then try and get here.
Sure, I get it.
Well, we changed it to 6:30
I
before.
have 2 cats to feed.
Right. And with it at 6:30, I can do the feeding and
Right.
everything.
Yeah, no, no, it wasn't our suggestion. it
Yeah,
was,
but and then we go later, I get it. But hopefully, maybe
Yeah,
we
but it's a
can
half an hour.
keep working on expediting.
Rich, how do you,
Either way.
either way is good? Okay, so Sarah, any closing comments?
Yeah, I mean, it really, like, you know, for us, it doesn't make a huge difference if it's 6 or 6:30, it's a tough time. You know, I think it also really limits the amount of engagement we get from other people in the community
Right.
who, you know, have kids in particular. One
Them
thing
all
I
out there.
would
There's a lot of
say,
them here tonight.
yeah, I know, packed house.
Empty
One thing
seats.
I would say, though, is that I think that whatever time we start, the public hearing should be the same for the quarterly meetings, because I get confused. And I will be late.
Yeah, I don't know
Like if
why
the
we
regular
moved the
hearings are at
first one up. We
6:30.
moved the first one up for a
and the
reason
quarterly
to
meetings are at
and then
6.
they all just
Oh,
started.
yeah, that was
You
right.
know,
It
it
was
should be the
earlier.
same time.
Yeah, I think it was.
Well, we have not set the dates for the quarterly meetings or the times.
I
So,
see.
I need to do that. I thought I
agree,
was gonna
that's
have it done for tonight, but I didn't. But we do have,
I mean, the only thing I would really say about the agenda, although I wasn't here the last time it was discussed, is just that there's November and December both only have one. It
Right.
would be nice if there was a month earlier in the year that only had one, like maybe May or June or July. Any of those months. It would just,
Yeah.
maybe, yeah, July probably makes the most sense.
Yeah.
Because we used to only have one in July, didn't we? I feel like
Yeah, because
2 years ago.
May, there's a big gap between the May and the June, you know.
well, what I tend to look for are the gaps to stick in the quarterly meetings, you know? Because I don't want you guys to get rusty. Well, we have what we have. I won't take a motion on the quarterlies because I didn't fill them in, but I'd like to do this if we can. Is there a motion to?
Drew wants it done by this meeting. He
Right.
specifically asked for it.
Yeah,
Can we take away the one closest to July 4th and then say yes?
That'd be July 10th.
July 10th.
Then you have a month between hearings, yeah.
You'd be going June 26th to July 24th.
Which right now,
We could stick a quarterly in there somewhere.
sure. We could do a quarterly in there, but I feel like just having a little bit of reprieve would be nice.
I'm fine.
Would that mess up applications? If we don't see them within 21 days?
Hard to say that far in advance. Yeah, I would say it might put a little pressure on us, but nothing that,
There is a
compared to what we've had in the past.
Yeah.
Case by case, I guess.
Okay.
I know we canceled the meeting this summer because both Dan
Because we were
and
gone,
Drew
yeah.
were away,
It
so
really didn't affect anything.
we made
Right.
it.
Yeah,
made it
so,
fine.
yeah, I'm fine taking out the July 10th.
Sure.
There is a concern about removing meeting room dates for room availability.
Right.
That is always a concern.
And it's not a concern for the quarterlies, because we typically
we'll be
do
in
those in the
J-Ho.
conference
Yeah.
room.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So if you take out the 10th, we just,
okay, X that
there's
one
no
out.
impact for
Okay.
meeting room space, yeah. As long as we keep all the other dates, right? So-
I'm good with that.
Thanks.
So is there a motion to accept this schedule as is, starting at 6:30 with the exclusion of the July 10th meeting?
So moved.
Thank you,
Second.
Steve. Thank you, Alex. Further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote. Alex?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. All right, perfect. And now that that's out, I'll go through and find some gaps for these quarterlies, and I'll get those for our next meeting. I think
That's it.
I think that's it as far as I'm concerned, unless there's updates that, Dan, you need to get into.
Not right now.
Not right now.
Nope, chapter 173, since that was voted on, Drew will send that out to town council post haste. So however long it takes for them to get back. And that should be about it with the meeting rooms, with the calendar confirmed. That's great, because our concern was if people started to continue, say tonight into January, we'd actually have no dates. So now we do, so that was the biggest thing, and so we should be good.
Reminder, our next meeting is in the library, not here.
Yes, next meeting's in the library, not here. Mashpee TV will record it, but it will not be
Live stream.
live or whatever it is. And then the last thing is Chop Shake Bog. The construction contract is done. The select board, I believe, approved it, so that's all set. It's all finalized, and we'll start construction like next month or something.
Okay.
So, cool.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Steve.
Second.
Thank you, Alex.
9:09. Nice.
Roll call vote, Alex?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
I proudly vote yes. I'm getting better. Boy, you're getting.